Hi everyone, it's Nicole here for Simon Says Stamp today with a couple of cards featuring the July 2019 Simon Says Stamp card kit called Be Yourself. We're going to do some stamping over pattern paper, one of my favorite techniques, and it works especially well with a kind of lighter design if you're coloring with some darker colors. I've picked a couple of pattern papers out from the double-sided sheets of honeybee stamps, the Bee's Knees 6x6 pattern papers included in the kit. I'm going to lay out my stamps and my sentiments from the included exclusive Simon Says Stamp Be Yourself 6x8 clear stamp set on my pattern paper to get the best area for stamping so that when I go to color in the images, I'm not having a bunch of pattern show through. It's fine for a little bit of pattern, but I don't want it to be so overwhelming that it's really hard to see the rest or see the image that we're actually coloring. We're going to use some Gina K ink to stamp those images right over the pattern paper. I'm using this hexagon or honeycomb design for my first little scene that has this adorable bumblebee, a couple of sentiments, and then that little bee trail. We'll also add a heart after bit. For my second background, I'm using the white pattern background the white background with the yellow splotches with another image and then the little bee trail and sentiment. Here's that little heart that I'm going to add underneath the sentiments for the first design. I used 3 of the heart stamps from the Be Yourself stamp set on the other background. Now that I have these both stamped, I'm going to go ahead and color them in. I opted to keep my pattern paper 6x6 until I had everything colored, and then I trimmed down my pattern from there, leaving me with some nice strips I can use on additional cards later on. Along the bottom of the screen, I've listed the Copic marker colors I'm using to color in these images for easy reference. I'm coloring in my hearts with red markers. I always love a little pop of red on my designs. I think it instantly draws your eye in. Then we're using some warm grays and yellows for the majority of the adorable little Be Yourself bees, some R21 for the cheeks and noses on the bees, and then some great blue violets for the wings themselves. I started with the base of the bee with the face and the stripes that I want to be kind of quote-unquote black. I always want to build up to that black color with our gray markers, whether you're using cool grays or tonal grays, neutral grays, or warm grays like I'm using here today, and then some yellows for the yellow stripes, and then those blue violets for the wings to give them that shimmery iridescent feel. In addition to the blue violets, we'll be using some Nuvo crystal drops in White Blizzard to give them some sparkle to even reinforce that iridescence even more. Let's go ahead and color the other background now. We're going to color these bees exactly like we colored this one. We'll color the hearts with our reds, R24 and R46. This one has a little less pattern to it, so it makes it even easier to color on. However, I think this is a great technique for many different pattern papers, just depending on what colors you're going to be using to color over the top. Light pastels will not show up as well, but these colors are pretty dark and deep, and they show up perfectly fine. This is a great technique if you don't have coordinating dies, or if you don't wish to have any die cuts with that white border around the edge, and you don't want to do fussy cutting or masking. This also is a great way to implement pattern paper into your card making very easily. Again, I colored the face and stripes of the bee with warm gray 5, 6, and 9. 9 is used extremely sparingly. The base is warm gray 5, and then we're going to blend out the warm gray 9 with warm gray 6. And then add in that R21 for the nose and the cheeks. I originally thought I would do the nose in the warm gray 9, but I'm glad I opted for the pink on the nose. I think it gives it a really fun, whimsical touch. And then of course, Just by simply going over that dark gray a few times with our R21 marker, you're going to get those cute little pink cheeks. I'm starting with yellow 11, very, very light, so that's just going to really be the highlight area on the belly of the bumblebees. Warm gray 19 is my darkest color, and then warm gray 08. This color combination seems to match the yellow from the honeybee stamps, the bee's knees pattern paper perfectly. Blue violet 31 and 34 round out the design. Very little coloring was needed for these cards, but it does add so much to the overall look and feel of the finished cards. Now, I really should have trimmed down my backgrounds before adding finishing details, but I didn't trim them down quite all the way. I did go ahead, we're going to have a landscape style card with this first background, so it's going to be an A2 sized card, 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inches in the landscape style. Our other background will be a portrait style background. I'm going to go in with a black glaze pen and add dots into the eyes and then the little hands on the arms of the bumblebee to give them definition, and then use a white opaque pen for some dots on the cheeks on each bumblebee. Nuvo crystal drops in White Blizzard, as I mentioned earlier, are going to give a sparkly, iridescent feel to the wings of our bumblebees. Now, I did forget to trim down my background to 5 1/4 inches wide, so I did go back in and trim off a 1/2 inch there since this is 6 by 6 pattern paper. And I'm going to add glossy accents to the hearts and the nose. All of these little finishing details really add to the overall look of these cute little bumblebees. From another pattern paper included in the kit that has this awesome kind of irregular scallop, I'm actually going to just trim this into thin strips so that I can use this for multiple cards. They're about 1/2 inch wide, but I didn't really measure them. We're going to go ahead and mat these behind the long edges on both backgrounds. I'm using some double-sided tape to attach these behind the back or behind the panel we have stamped and colored, and it's going to give a scallop look along both edges without actually having to die cut anything. We're simply using the pattern paper to add a scallop to those long edges of the design. That really finishes it off. We can go ahead and attach this to a white side fold card base now, and it almost covers the entire A2 sized background. I'm putting some nice strong adhesive on my card base, and then I'll take my panel to the base. I still think there's some nice kind of quote-unquote white space in this card design that we're going to fill in with additional little hexagon or honeycomb shapes. That's going to come with the exclusive hexagon wafer thin die and some additional pattern papers from the kit. Let's go ahead and trim down our second background. This one will be portrait styled, so it's going to be exactly like the last one. Along each long side, we will add those scallop borders from the pattern paper. I did add some little eyelashes to one of these bumblebees. I'm going in with my black glaze pen again, adding detail to the eyes and to the hands. White opaque pen for the cheeks with some cute little dot detail. Nuvo crystal drops in White Blizzard for the sparkly iridescent bumblebee wings. And this does dry completely clear but sparkly, so the blue violet of the wings will show through. And then glossy accents for the noses on the bees and the hearts. We'll mat this on that same scallop paper strips as we did before. This time it's going to be along the sides. And then we're going to finish our cards with this great hexagon wafer thin die. I have die cut the hexagon from pattern papers from the kit and the sunshine and black cardstock included in the kit. The cardstock is going to be the outlines, and we're using the glue sponge also from the kit to attach these to our card. I want these hexagon shapes to either be coming in from the sides and the bottom or down from the top. It gives it a great little space to ground this, and it reinforces that bumblebee honeycomb type of theme. I die cut the outlines from cardstock, and then I'm going to fill in or inlay the patterns inside. This gives a great little decorative touch to that. I'm touching my die cut piece to the glue sponge and then simply taking it to my project. I found it was easier to take my crystal katana and pick up all those little inlay pieces and touch them to the glue sponge and then touch them to my card project rather than trying to use my fingers, as I tended to make a big glue mess. So I switched over to the crystal katana to keep it hands-free. This is a great glue for attaching die cuts or small little pieces to a project. Once I have all of my inlay die cutting in place, I'm going to take some Simon Says stamp BUZZY. I think it's called BUZZY. I want to make sure I say it exactly right. Yes, I think it's BUZZY black and yellow sequins, and we're going to fill in with some great little embellishments scattered throughout our card design. These are in some yellow and black, and they fill out and add an extra little touch of sparkle and fun to our card. So I'll lay them out kind of how I think I want them to go first, and then I'm going to attach these with some liquid adhesive so I don't have to worry about them going anywhere. We'll use the Lawn Fawn glue tube and the crystal katana to easily glue and place these sequins where we want them to go. I even layered some of the sequins by taking the solid black confetti pieces and placing them in the center of the yellow sequins. We'll scatter a few additional black confetti pieces throughout our card as well. This really fills in a lot of that white space in the background and adds additional interest to complete the scenes. I'm going to do this for both card backgrounds to finish these cards today. Thank you guys so much for joining me for these two cards featuring stamping and coloring over patterned papers, featuring kit components from the July 2019 Simon Says card kit called Be Yourself. The supplies I used to create these cards are listed and linked below the video here on YouTube. Please be sure to subscribe to the Simon Says Stamp YouTube channel for loads of card making and paper crafting inspiration. Thank you guys so much for joining me today, and we'll catch you next time.